Hey everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review 181. Today I'm going to talk about Moonbase Alpha. This is a relatively recent release from Victory Point Games. It's a two-player game, and on the surface it probably seems like it's a war game, but it also has some 4X elements in it that are very interesting. So basically what the idea of the game is that each player takes on a corporation and they're mining the moon or exploiting the moon, if you will. And you're trying to basically drive your stock price up, from mining the moon from resources, as well as drive your opponent's stock price down. Now you're going to have different units, and they look very war-gamey. There's attack power and movement and armor and stuff like that, and it's got little war game chits. And basically you're trying to mine the moon for resources, get those resources to spend on getting better, different units, expanding your units all over the different parts of the moon to get up, little science points that you can use to increase your technology, and basically just wipe the other guy off the map, but also keeping in mind that there's sort of media involved. So this is set in, I don't know where it's set, it's kind of the near/distant future where we're mining the moon, but you've also got to sort of keep in mind the casualties and what the media is going to say about your casualties, and that may drop your stock price more drastically. So let's take a look at how the game works, and I'll come back and tell you more about it. So Moonbase Alpha comes in a relatively small box, and I believe the price point is $25 to $30, kind of depending on where you buy it. It comes with a handful of unit counters that'll be used in combat. It's also got some technology cards. Players are going to be dealt 5 of these every game, and that's going to be their hand of cards. So the rest of the cards will be put back in the box, and so every game you're going to have a different hand of 5 cards, and I'll talk more about those later. So on the map you've got sort of a picture of the moon with different areas dividing up all the different sections. In some sections you'll have mining symbols, which are going to add to your income if you control those areas. You'll also have some areas with science symbols, which will add to your ability to research the technologies that you're dealt. And some areas on the board will have mountainous terrain, which just makes it more difficult to move through. Players will have infantry units, mobile units, missile crawlers, and also a media marker in their color. These will start off the board and then need to be recruited every round. And players will have 4 action markers that they're going to use to assign different actions to the different units on the board. And the way that this works is very interesting, and I'll talk more about that in a second. But this is one of my favorite aspects of this game. So to start the game, each player is going to put their stock price marker on the 800 level. And then at the end of each round, you're going to check for victory. If anybody has raised their stock all the way up to 1600, then they're going to win. Otherwise, you also will check if somebody's stock is dropped all the way to 0 and they have to declare bankruptcy and thus lose the game. Otherwise, you're going to advance the settlement marker, and if it reaches the top, then that's going to be the end of the game, and then whoever has the highest stock price at that point is going to win the game. So you can also see on the stock track, there's going to be different sort of event tiles that when the first person that hits that space on the stock track is actually going to trigger an event. Now this can be kind of good and bad, because you may get sort of a positive event if you're going down, which will kind of help you catch up a little bit. But if you get a negative event and you're going down, then that kind of will bear you. But I haven't seen it swing the game so far, and just a quick little interjection here, I have seen a game where somebody was actually spending a lot of their money to decrease their stock to get extra bonus money to spend in the round, which I'll talk about in a second, and also was getting hammered at the beginning, but they actually caught up and won the game. So I don't think it's a huge issue. It may seem huge at the beginning, at least that was my initial impression, but they aren't too drastic, but they are definitely worthwhile and noteworthy. I just don't think they're game breaking, and I think that may be an impression that some people get. So then players will choose a base and then set up infantry units and mobile units, as well as their media marker in the base and around the base. And then each round players are going to get a fixed income of $4 that they can spend, plus however many territories they have that have a little mining symbol. And basically you just have to control it. So if you have more units than your opponent in a spot, then you control it, and you get the bonus, whatever it may be, science or mining capability. So you get $4 plus however many mines you control, and then you can spend that on reinforcements. So when you buy reinforcements, you'll take a look at the upper right hand side of the chit, and that's the amount of dollars that you have to spend. You can also see on the lower left part of the chit is the armor, and that's basically the number they have to roll or higher to be able to deflect a hit. And then on the right hand side you've got the number of movement points it gets every turn. The cool thing is that the dollar amount actually hides its ranged attack power. So you have a little bit of fog of war aspects there, because not all units are made equally the same. And actually when you buy them, you can't just look and choose. You've got to take them and then you can look and see, okay, I got a good one or a bad one. But your opponent's not going to know. So when you go to do a ranged attack, you're going to flip them over, you're going to reveal them, then flip them back down. And then so that gives a little bit of fog of war, which is kind of neat. So you can buy your first 3 reinforcements every round at face value, and then for each unit above that, you're going to have to actually pay an extra $1. And then you can pay $1 and then move your media marker anywhere on the board that you want. And so you want to get it close to where there may be a battle that you're going to win. So that way, you know, your media sort of PR people can advertise that you're the one that's winning and that's kicking butt up here. And you want to keep the media marker away if you expect that in a certain zone you're going to get trounced. So that's kind of an interesting aspect as well. Next, you can pay $2 and you can raise or lower the settlement marker if you choose. And then finally, you can pay $6 and just raise your stock up 1 level. Now if you choose, when you get your income for this phase, in addition to the $4 plus whatever mines, you can, if you want, lower your stock 1 space, roll the die, and then you can add that much more money to your income. So you may do that, and it's actually worthwhile to do that sometimes to get sort of a nice set of forces out and try to make a rush. So after each player spent their budget, then you're going to go ahead and assign the action tokens. Now you get 4 action tokens, and on the back of these is either a 1-star, or 2-star, 3-star, or a moon. Now the moon is a decoy. So players in turn are going to take turns placing these action tokens out on the board. Now you don't have to place your 1-star first. You could place your decoy first. You could place your 3-star first. But basically what's going to happen after everybody's placed their action tokens is the start player, determined by whoever has the lowest stock price at the current time, is going to flip over that top, the number 1 star, and then they're going to activate their units in that zone, and then the other player will flip over their 1 star, and then the 2, and the 2, and the 3, and the 3, and then finally your decoy. Now you can put those action tokens all in the same zone if you wanted to do multiple activations, but it's got to have some units that you control in that area. So it's interesting because you may put an action token on there expecting to maybe like, I'm going to move these guys a couple of spaces, but then your opponent comes in and attacks them, so now you've got an activation to you have to attack with them or something, or your units may get suppressed and you can't actually use them. So you kind of have to sort of guess ahead a little bit and think of, okay, if I move this unit back on this side, I'm going to move them up to catch up to my other unit. So by the time they get there, they're going to be at another activation marker that I've placed before, and then all the units now in that area could possibly do an action. So there's 4 actions in the game. The first thing you can do is move. Now you move up to its movement allowance. Anything with a mountainous terrain is going to cost you an extra movement point. If you move into an enemy zone, that's going to be 2 movement points. If you move anywhere adjacent to any other enemy, that's an extra movement point there. The next thing you can do is ranged fire. Now you can move and do a ranged fire, but when you do that, you're going to do what's called bounding fire. So when you fire, you're going to flip all the units up, face up, and then you're going to add up all of their firepower on the backside that you can't see, and then you're going to roll 2d6, and then you're going to take a look at the fire results table and then apply these effects. There's different effects. You can suppress a unit. If you suppress a unit, you have to put it on one of these clear blue discs, and that unit's no longer going to be able to activate. You may force the units to retreat or automatically destroy units, just kind of depending on how much you dominate over your opponent in that case. So just a quick interjection here. Now the copy that I have is the 1.0 rules, and actually in these rules it says you can't actually move and fire. But there's been a small errata in a couple of little sections here to sort of clarify that. These actually weren't the ones apparently that were supposed to be printed. And I don't know that if you were to go out and buy this now, that you will get the latest ones. But there's a thread on Board Game Geek with just a couple of sentences of errata, and they actually have the correct printed ones on the Victory Point Games website if you want to download those. So make sure you get that. But you can actually move and fire. So after you have your ranged combat, then you may have your assault combat, and that's kind of like melee combat. Basically what you do is you just add up all the units on your side, roll a d6, add it to that side, and then your opponent adds up all the units on their side, rolls a d6, and then whoever wins, the outcome of that is going to lose units equal to the lowest die roll. And then whoever loses is going to lose units equal to the highest die roll. So that's kind of interesting. So the amount of units you lose is going to be based on the die roll, but you're going to apply the die roll to your total unit. So that's got some interesting deadly possibilities there. Now, if you lose units and there's a media counter, either adjacent or in that zone, then you're going to take and move those units to the lost box for the media. So that you can see there's two lost boxes on the little player aid. There's regular losses and then there's media losses. If a unit is killed without a media counter around it, it just goes into regular losses. If it goes into the media losses, that means there was a media counter around there, and that's actually going to hurt your stock price more at the end of the round. Now, the last thing you can do is actually upgrade, and that's when you be able to play some of the cards from your hand. When you do an upgrade, you're basically going to roll 2d6, and then you're going to look at the card and see if you succeeded. Now, you're going to add to your 2d6 roll the number of science points that you control on the board as well, so that'll make it a little bit easier for you to achieve that. So let's talk about the upgrade cards. Well, like I said, you're going to get a hand of 5 of cards, and there's a whole bunch of these. They're going to give you other units, they're going to give you mines, they're going to give you special units that only you can use, they're going to upgrade your existing units, and they range from easy to achieve to very hard to achieve. So again, you're going to roll your 2d6, add your science points, and then you're going to look on the card, and if it's in a plus, then you're going to be able to succeed and put that into play. If it's a minus, then it's not going to work, and your stock price is actually going to drop. Now, some of the pluses, your stock price will actually go up, or you'll just succeed. And so you can see the easy one here, it's actually pretty easy to achieve, whereas this very hard one is a little bit more difficult to achieve, and possibly you may, lower your stock price for a failed research attempt. So that's pretty much how the game plays, and at the end of the round, you're going to see if you had any stock losses. So basically, for every $6 of stuff that you had destroyed, then you're going to lose a stock point. If you need to round up or whatever, so you'll actually roll a die and see if you will round up those last 6 remaining points, and then you may or may not lose an extra stock point. Now again, the media losses are actually going to count twice. So if I had $4 in the media one, actually would be $8 worth of stuff that I lost. So I really like this game. It's got some really interesting takes on this sort of basic war game idea. You've got the economy that you have to manage. You want to get to some areas where there's mines and generate extra income. You got to think about whether you want to spend sort of your stock capital to generate extra income for the round. You got to see if maybe you just want to spend $6 to jack your stock price up. So it could be that you've sort of built a sort of fortification area of just it's kind of halfway through the map, because some of those central areas are hard to get to with the slowing down of the movement points and things with the terrain. So you want to try to lock that in, and then maybe start pumping your stock up as much as you can to try to end the game quickly. I also really enjoy the media aspect of it. I just like that thematically, where you have sort of a propaganda arm that's sort of feeding information back to Earth, whether it's good or bad or truthful or not. I just like that interesting aspect of trying to show that you're devastating your opponent, and and stuff like that. It's kind of a cool little aspect. Never really seen anything like that in a game with media and things like that. I like the different units. The different technologies are really cool. I like that you get a hand of 5 and that's it, and you're stuck with it. So each game is different. So I didn't realize that that's how it was in the game, and I read the rules and I was like, oh no, well, I don't get to go through and pick or stuff. It's like, no, these are the 5 you get, and you can kind of tailor your strategy that way. There's a variety of things making your units better. I can plop down little mines and things, and just try to generate money that way. So that whole thing, there's a lot of tension between sort of your battlefield dominance, as well as you've got to watch the stock price and everything, and you don't want your opponent to get too far up. You've got to then be aggressive and try to really put the hurt on them as they get close to that high stock price. And it keeps the game interesting in the fact that you don't just have to go in and basically go all the way into your opponent's front and destroy their base or something like that. It's just like going in and devastating certain areas of the map, and then also you've got that whole resource control, which is kind of like a StarCraft kind of thing. It's like, okay, he's got this cool mine, well, I'm going to go knock him out so that I can get more income next turn and stuff like that. So there's a lot of jockeying around back and forth. There's not a lot of some war games where it's like there's key points that are in the game, and this one you don't really care about the guy's base or anything. You need to get the resource and the monies for yourself. So that's a cool aspect. So I was actually very surprised by this game. I really enjoy it quite a bit. The technology cards, the action markers that you're going to put out the bluff with, just the balance of the economy and everything I was been talking about. Plays very quickly, about 90 minutes, and that's about right. It can go a little bit longer because of the AP that may set in. when you figure out where you're going to put all the action markers, that can really sort of put a hurting on your brain a little bit. I mean, not in a bad way. It's just like you're trying to sort of outguess and outbluff your opponent. So that makes it very interesting. Okay, so that's Moonbase Alpha. Take a look at it. Thanks.